They also mentioned, besides the economic data releases of like CPI and PPI, they also mentioned central bank policy direction, and that's going to kind of take us into our next little topic here with the FOMC and the Federal Reserve. The main part here I want you guys to take away is when the Fed or the FOMC changes interest rates, it can make it easier or harder for people to get loans, influence how much costs, and impact jobs and investment. So that's basically they can affect our economy in those ways. So whether they want to raise rates, lower rates, or hold rates, it could greatly affect all these parts of our lives. So loans, how much things cost, jobs, and investments. Another big part right here is that FOMC meets 8 times a year, and they make decisions that influence the cost of borrowing money. So, this is when they make those interest rate decisions. These 8 times a year, they're either raising, holding, or cutting rates. The chairman of the Federal Reserve right now is Jerome Powell. So if you ever see us talk about Jerome Powell right now, that's because he's the one that everybody's watching when he goes and gets in front of the podium, makes any type of economic announcement. Here, this is up top. This is going to be a chart of the S&P 500, the broad market. The TIPS bond ETF tracks Treasury inflated protected securities. Okay, so it's a direct way to invest in inflation hedged bonds and can reflect inflation trends. So basically, what we're seeing here is inflation. Like you can kind of see the fall and rise of inflation and what's going on. Now, these charts should be synced up. Yeah, so these charts are going to be synced up, and we can kind of see like, all right, so if inflation kind of fell here and we were stable up here with the S&P 500. Now you see inflation starting to rise while we're holding on the S&P 500. Well, what happens kind of here is Trump's major tariff announcements. So that's going to do what to inflation because he's setting all these higher prices on the tariffs for these other countries. So it's obviously going to rise inflation, and we're dropping. And then actually, when you see inflation start to drop, you'll see us start to come out of it. Right here will show January through April of 2025, right? So you'll see this is where we got this major move down, and it's really happened. The S&P dropped 20%. And you see this info line right here. So it's a 20% drop in the S&P. It really started to drop here towards the end of the middle of February 20th. And then we go all end of February, all through March. And then the beginning of April is where we actually bottom out. So, you got what, a little over a month and a half almost of that move down. 20% is not normal for the SPY. But this is what happens when, you get Trump in office and he's from January to 25, the U.S. tariff rate rose from 2.5 to an estimated 27%. So that's a crazy increase in tariffs, and that's why you get a crazy move like this in the stock market. It takes something big in the market to do this.